There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
All right, welcome here to Media Mothership on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. There's a bit of sound effects in the background. That's absolutely fine. We're broadcasting out of Edge Radio Studios in Nipaluna, Hobart, Tasmania. And on this show, we explore how media shapes our understanding of the world around us. I'm your host, Craig, joined by Taylor.
Hello.
And Ronan.
Hi.
And we're streaming on edgeradio.org.au as well as on YouTube and Twitch. You can find us just by searching Media Mothership. Message in on the chat at YouTube or Twitch.
Or
SMS us on 048888 11707.
Yep, 04888 11707.
And we'll do our best to keep an eye on the monitors around us, hopefully. So today's topic, we're going to cover some interesting news around media and popular culture.
Cool.
As well as, if we have time, on the Media Mothership website, I've been uploading a classic academic work created by me. It's my 1996 it was awarded, so this research was done in 1995. So 30,
a year after I was born?
Wow, 30 years ago. So you're 32, 31?
I'll be 30 this year.
Okay. So, I guess this was ground zero for you. This was my honors thesis, called Manga Dreaming, the irresponsible images of cyberpunk anime.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So you were born into the age of manga dreaming.
Yes, I was.
A lot of irresponsible images. And so we might dive into that, looking at that kind of VHS era of anime in the mid-90s and late 80s. And great. Yeah, thank you. The audio is working. We've got some chat live informing us the audio is working, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Twix the Dragon. So before we go any further, I've got a musical accompaniment guest today. Ronan's doing music on the kalimba.
Yep.
The piano. So we'll go to news now. So to bring us over to news, we'll play our theme song. Nice. That's great. Yeah. We can push the mic towards it as well. That's great.
An octave.
Yep. And we're up. All right. So news. So Taylor, you reminded me of this story. Leaked files reveal how China is using AI to erase the history of the Tiananmen Square massacre. What's interesting to me about this piece was a article leads with this image pointing out that even a picture of one banana and 4 apples in a line could be flagged because it shares a similar sequence with the Tank Man photo. All right, so the Tank Man photo is that classic photo of the protester, the Chinese guy with like groceries in both hands, who's standing in front of a tank during the Tiananmen Square kind of protest period, and brings to a stop these 4 huge tanks. Of course, as we know, in China, there's been a long history of erasing all discussion around the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre from public view. And still 36 years since, Beijing's still censoring that information and has not disclosed the official death toll of this bloody crackdown that occurred on June 4th. So this image is really interesting, though. So the arrangement of the 1 banana and 4 apples, where basically the 4 green apples represent the tanks, and you've got 1 banana standing on its end at one of the end of the line of apples. So it's intriguing, isn't it? How, again, in terms of meaning making, the dominant reading, negotiated reading, and resistant reading that you could have of the apple banana structures, according to Stuart Hall.
You see, I've just been trying to do a bit of a Google at the moment. I can't find it, but it just reminded me of like how they're training AI for that.
To detect, monitor, and
To
censor
detect
images.
sort of like a composition.
Oh.
They're training AI to detect a sort of composition, no matter how it is, that sort of thing. And it reminded me of how Renaissance paintings all have that sort of that swirl thing. Do you know about that?
Oh, like Da Vinci's Adam and God moment of touching. There's a swirl thing.
What?
Wasn't that in Da Vinci Code? You're talking Da Vinci Code. I know.
Yeah, Da Vinci Code.
The conspiracy theory, or that it's a brain.
No, I'm talking about like how in Renaissance art
Da
you
Vinci?
have this sort of like spiral, which is like a shell, and then you have like the focal point in the middle of that shell, and then all of these different things being composed
Okay.
in a different manner. So it's like a sort of spiral sort of thing. It just sort of reminded me of that because lots of Renaissance paintings also have that similar composition as well.
Well, if there's any Assassin's Creed players out there who played that level, let us know. But it is interesting in terms of like, I always like referring back to Stuart Hall and the meaning of science.
I refer back to Stuart Hall all the time.
Stuart Hall, one of the great theorists, one of his biggest theories was the kind of dominant reading of an image, like how an image is given meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Often you've got a dominant meaning, sorry. So, for instance, the image of the Tiananmen Square protester might be one of the dominant meaning for the West is resistance. Then you've got a negotiated reading where it might be, part of this suggests resistance, but also you've got to understand, this guy's not really resisting. He came across it. Why is the tank driver doing it? And then the resistant reading is one which opposes that, which might flip it on its head and say it's all a conspiracy, that never took place, that it was staged, and so forth. So it's interesting when you're given the symbology of the banana and 4 apples, how what they're saying there is that from the censorship point of view, is the dominant reading of that is the Tiananmen Square massacre. Yet, for many people, they might negotiate that.
Okay,
and say,
I found it.
It's a beautiful apple-banana arrangement. Yes.
It's not a good image. It's very poorly done in Blender. But the one I was talking about was the golden ratio.
Okay. Golden ratio.
Used in Renaissance art. This mathematical ratio, when applied to a square, creates a spiral
Right.
that guides the viewer's eye and is therefore considered aesthetically
Isn't that a
pleasing.
JoJo reference?
Oh, is that the JoJo reference?
No, JoJo, it got...
Isn't that a meme?
Yeah, the golden... what's it called again?
Golden spiral.
Yeah, golden ratio is...
Oh, yeah, ratio, sorry.
Is a JoJo reference because the main character in... what is it called again? Part 7 uses the golden ratio to spin this certain type of bowl that he uses.
Okay.
And
Right.
if you spin it correctly, it's a golden ratio of spinning, and it infinitely spins.
Okay, yeah.
Beyblade players.
Like all the old Renaissance art.
Love that, yes.
It infinitely spins on the wall.
I thought all the JoJo references were based on music.
Yes, the stands are, the stand powers are,
Yep.
but only the part after part, like almost, it's basically just the mangaka's playlist.
Well, we'll get around to manga after the deep dive into the next China story, which I didn't engage in. It's a video game,
Okay.
global video game called Helldivers 2, where you play in this fictional far future setting.
Oh, is this where you played the start of the trailer for it?
Yeah. I played
Yeah.
the trailer for it a couple episodes ago. It's based on kind of a Starship Troopers vibe, where you're eradicating bugs and various threats to humanity. It's a third-person shooter. What's really interesting about it is there'll be these storytelling moments where it really spills into the real world in a weird way.
Trump.
Trump's not involved. China is involved this time. America was involved, but in a kind of good way. This was following the recent battle for Super Earth, where Super Earth was under threat from these Illuminid invaders. And anyway, it needed it gained the attention in China because one of the last cities was modeled after Shanghai.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So it's kind of this far future thing, and this was the last bastion. Is that right, Ronan? You were playing that those days.
Oh yeah, like one day.
One day, I didn't get around playing any days. Anyway, Shanghai was holding out. The event got featured in the chat about, hey, we've really got to hold off. And the thing that was crazy about it was that it was featured on a real Chinese news show called the Kanka News Morning Shanghai. And they praised how both the Chinese and non-Chinese players collaborated together to defend the attack that was occurring. We'll play a bit of the... I think you'll understand it when we hear the news broadcast.
Okay.
国加油的字幕
这是，
当中美玩家联手结盟，全球玩家集结上海，昼夜轮班筑起赛博长城，拯救地球的尊严。
I'll translate. A defense of Shanghai that takes place within the game. It originally happened on May 20th. A version update has been released for a shooter called Helldivers 2. In the game setting, alien invasion of virtual Earth, each of the 7 landmarks on Earth corresponding to Shanghai. All right, anyway. So basically,
Okay.
Okay.
what happened in this story was... the Chinese players delegated some of the time to the American players. So the Chinese players were defending during the day to help save the Earth from this invasion. And the American players, they organized through chat to make sure the American players would hold off during the night. What's kind of amusing is with that broadcast, that was a real news broadcast, saying basically how wonderful it was that China and America came together to help defeat this invasion in the game. And the way they put it is fantastic. They say Chinese players were battling the enemies during the daytime using their excellent shooting skills and strategic plans. And then they talk about how, then they say, and then the American players took over the nighttime operations utilizing airdrops and firepower to construct the defense line for Shanghai.
So, is it like a multiplayer online game?
So it's a co-op game, so it's not a PvP game.
Okay,
it's a
so
co-op game where
against the environment, PvE.
Yeah. And it is kind of synchronous, so the Helldivers 2 is, got into some controversy because it's considered a game where the player's actions will change the course of events, potentially. Right? So if the players
I need to get this game.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
I need to get this game, and then the headline will be Maniac Australian destroys...
Right. Where's the Australian representation?
The base.
Mercenary vibe. But there was some controversy because days before, the Chinese players had become so upset by the fact that they organized this defense of Shanghai, but the percentage of success was stuck at 99.9888%. And there was this big debate saying, oh, this is just because it's fake. They want us to believe that we can make a difference, but even when we come together, we can't get to 100%. But then other people were saying, well, it's a defense mission, so, unless they stop invading, you'll never get to 100%.
Yeah.
But it was, a fascinating moment of politics and video games coming together hand in hand to represent that in a really kind of undemocratic fashion. I mean, it's called managed democracy. You're pretty much playing in a kind of Nazi environment. One of our chat messages, nothing happened. Nothing happened in the game.
I think he was talking about the conversation a few minutes ago about Tiananmen Square.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, of course. Something happened at Tiananmen Square. So this broadcast shouldn't be censored, hopefully, by Chinese. Okay, talking of disasters, the other news story I want to quickly talk about, two stories that are coming out around a manga that have caused people to cancel their tourist plans to Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, manga's July 2025 Japan disaster prediction shakes up fear of the big one, and some are even abandoning their holiday plans. Yes. So a couple of articles are talking about how this manga called Watashi ga Mita Mirai, The Future I Saw, which is a fictional manga, but it's set of these kind of claims of disasters that are written in this manga.
Yeah, well, so does Weathering with You, and that says it never stops raining ever again.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. So it talks about so over the past few weeks, once obscure manga has been making headlines in Japan and overseas. The author claims that Japan will be hit by a massive natural disaster in July 2025.
Wow.
Predictions been cited as a reason some holiday makers are abandoning their summer plans to travel to Japan, and has exploded across Japanese social media platforms. Why are some people apparently believing this manga's prediction? So the article talks about how, even though this was first published back in 1999, and it features the author as a character that's basically writing his dream diaries that he's been keeping since 1985. There's this idea that these references, he might be onto something. This kind of reference to the 2025 July concern. It seems that so it's preying upon people's superstitions. I think there was some reference in there that he got one thing correct in the past. There was one thing that was featured in the manga that then people were sure, oh, actually that did happen. Anyway, to look into further, would you just not go somewhere? I mean, you've got some travel plans. Would you not go somewhere if a manga depicted a disaster about to befall there?
No.
I mean,
because I'm not an idiot.
There absolutely will be an earthquake in Japan in July.
Yeah, they are.
That's true.
Well,
That's
not
true,
who knows when, but yeah, it is up for an earthquake potentially.
In July, yeah. I mean,
well, it
it's
might
the
not be
reality
July.
of their geography. It's just
I mean, it might be July, it might be next year, it might be 5 years, but yeah, it is one of those things.
It just depends on how big it will be.
And it is unusual that people are starting to, kind of interpret this as possibly true. But yeah, I mean, Japan is very earthquake prone, and seismologists have been, warning that there's possibly a megaquake around the corner. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of urban legend wrapped into that, media influence, and then, going into real concerns as well, which we don't do on this show. So do always maintain a healthy skepticism for news. Next article I want to talk about is kind of following up the last 3 weeks of discussion that we've done on villains. So last 3 weeks on the show, we've been talking about how story writing can create great villains. Shonen Jump in Japan is launching a campaign to find its greatest villains. So this is the Shueisha publishing company. So if you, I mean, I'm not sure. So yeah, some of the anime that's in Shonen Jump includes Spy X Family, Kaiju Number 8, Hell's Paradise, Dan Da Dan, which I do want to watch. And they're going to, decide which villain is the biggest villain of this franchise. So do go ahead.
I've never heard of
now.
any of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Death Note.
Oh yeah, okay,
Death
yeah, I know
Note
that.
could be featured there. Dragon Ball Z is.
The only Dragon Ball Z I watched was the live action American one.
Oh my god.
Well, that is an act of villainy in itself. that vibe. What else? Last news story: Japan to create digital archive of manga and anime and games. The government is set to launch a new digital archive strategy aimed at preserving and promoting Japan's trove of such cultural assets as manga, anime, and video games, which are immensely popular among young people worldwide.
Haha, Nintendo says good luck with that.
It'll be interesting if video games, yeah. I mean, there is this problem of particularly online games basically having a shelf life, which means that in 10 years' time, they could be unplayable because they require online engagement or online playing. So I think there is a thread that people don't realize that a lot of this stuff could disappear. I know mobile games disappear, right? Trying to archive mobile games from the early 2000s, a lot of those have just disappeared.
There was heaps of my favourite games from Adult Swim can't get any more.
Right, yeah, that they would release for a short time, linked to an Adult Swim series. Yeah. This initiative is expected to have a spillover effect, encouraging domestic and international enthusiasts too, after seeing the digitized version of it, to pay a visit to wherever the asset is located. So, the Ross Bakery and Kiki's delivery service might get a Guernsey with this.
Yeah.
So the strategy emphasizes that local communities should lead the decision-making process for preserving local cultural and artistic works, with municipalities playing a central role in expanding and utilizing digital archives. So yeah, let's see if we can get the Ross Bakery in the middle of Tasmania to feature as part of the digital archiving of Kiki's delivery service.
I've tried to go to the Ross Bakery every time I've gone to Ross.
Oh, tried to. You
tried
never
to.
made it.
Every single time it's been shut. And then I went there, the most recent time I went there, they said, sorry, we're shut for the next 7 months.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, hopefully this digital archiving event in Japan will help.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get a musical interlude going with our musician. That's really good. That is really good. Certainly better than... So anyway, so welcome back here to Media Mothership. As I mentioned, I want to dip into briefly the impact of manga and anime.
Okay, go.
Right, because I found this thesis that I'd written back in '95, available now on the Media Mothership website. If you head over
For
there,
free.
Yeah, or at least the first chapter's up.
Oh,
if
come
I get
on.
around to the rest, that's how you do it. First chapter's free. And it was all about my experiences in '95 as an honors student, diving into this new thing at that stage called manga and anime.
Whoa.
I know, which was blowing my mind with some of the stuff that was there. What I was thinking might be interesting is one of the big debates that was certainly part of the manga anime scene then, and is still an issue today, is the dub versus sub debates. So I want to get around to that. But first, what I want to do is, when I was getting into anime in 1995, the big series or the big movies that were kind of getting a lot of high-profile media attention was, of course, Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira. Right, it was the movie, of course, right? And then a little later, the Ghost in the Shell movie.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was going to the local anime club at Adelaide University and catching Ranma Half, and then Madman not Madman, this was before Madman Entertainment. You had Manga Entertainment and Kaseki Entertainment, who were releasing AD Police, Bubblegum Crisis, Cyber City Oedo, and of course, Urotsuki Doji, Legend of the Overfiend, which got banned in many countries. To set the mood, I found a couple of quick YouTube shorts that talk about this kind of nostalgic period of mid-90s. Anyone?
I don't think you're meant to. I don't think you're allowed to play a single clip from the last one you mentioned.
Urotsuki Doji. Not yet.
It's classified as hentai.
We need a later time slot.
We've got a a
An
message.
SMS?
Yeah.
You want to read it out?
Okay, yes. So it says, hello, Tay-Tay, Taylor Lidstone, and Dr. Craig Norris. So he knows who you are. I'm one of Taylor's students, and I have a question related to Star Wars. Okay. I was wondering what both your opinions are on the new Star Wars show, specifically the poorly written pieces of Star Wars media with poor storylines, but also on Andor, which is known for being infantilized with implications to human mating and brutal on-screen deaths with examples like people being hung and K2SO using an Imperial soldier as a human shield.
Yeah.
He's clearly dead in the scene too. And then they also go on to say, also, Taylor, I'd like to apologise for being so creepy lately with digging up your entire digital footprint, and the way we talk about it might come off as bullying or mean. But I genuinely find the work you do outside of the education department interesting and well done. Wow. And it's given me personal courage to start writing my own music and potentially get into a podcast myself. So that's brilliant.
Could reference this on their CV.
Yeah, all the best. Nathan, writer, also apologises and is sending this message for me. Also love your music.
Wonderful.
Right.
Shout out to fans of the show.
Yeah.
I think we could say now. Well, let's hope that this enlightens them somewhat. I think it's a great question they're asking about the
Star Wars
current status of Star Wars and the direction of Andor. We can touch on that briefly. I've seen the Andor series, both the seasons now. Have you?
I haven't
either. All right. Well, I mean, what's really fascinating to me about the Andor season or the Andor approach is it's set in this, obviously in terms of the storytelling. Mm-hmm. We're looking at a series that's set just before the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back Return of the Jedi world, right? Okay. So this is the lead up to how the Empire consolidated its power after the prequels, and then how they established the Empire and their brutal reign of power over the galaxy. Mm-hmm. I think it's, in terms of some of, I mean, the question that Nathan is quite right in terms of the, it's de-infantilized in terms of it's made for an adult audience. Mm. It's certainly really political. If you look on YouTube, there's a number of really fascinating political scientist reacts to Andor clips, which are out there talking about how clearly the showrunners of Andor read up on their history, that there are a number of real-world analogies that are going on. So the current season of Andor has this fascinating kind of there's the Gormant, I think it's called the Gormant planet, which is going to be mined for this substance. What's fantastic is that it's France. Basically, the planet's France, and we're looking at an analogy of the brutal Nazi dictatorship and control over France during World War II and the emergent rebellion, the French resistance, which happened there. So there's this really powerful play between real history and resistance culture that's playing out in Andor. Mm-hmm. They don't pull their punches as well. There's some wonderful ideas of the kind of banality of terror and evil, which we see with the kind of enforcer Imperials that, like, there's this character Deidre, who is the kind of Imperial police, thought police, anti-espionage, anti-terrorism kind of think tank group. And spoilers, it's suggested that her actions lead to the rebellion being able to get the Death Star plans. Oh, wow. But the way she does it, it's this kind of banality of middle management, bureaucratic career escalator promotion in a climate of suspicion and competitiveness. I mean, we've talked about this before in terms of accents, that middle management references, because Ben Mendelsohn plays the chief imperial officer, and in interviews he's described it as kind of, well, he's a middle manager. Basically, it's that banality of working in a work environment where you're dealing with people that you hate. It's in an environment that's kind of stifling, but you just got to get through it. And sometimes your manager's good, and sometimes it's not. And in this case, Ben Mendelsohn delivering this perfectly calibrated, middle management terror. in British
Fantastic.
accents.
Yeah, of course.
In British accents.
Because British accents are
evil.
evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Full of kind of colonial terrorism.
All I can say to do with Star Wars is the worst thing they've ever done was the movie.
Jar Jar Binks.
That's not a movie.
For Christmas?
Well, you know, the Ewoks Caravan of Courage was pretty horrible. The Star Wars Holiday Special after the first Star Wars was pretty horrible.
I mean, like actual feature length movie.
You know, I struggle with all the prequels. So certainly Phantom Menace.
For me, it's Solo.
Oh, okay.
That is one of the worst pieces of media I've ever watched.
Yeah, look, the thing I found interesting about the Solo film is that it showed kind of non-stormtrooper Imperial soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
You had this idea that, you know, you've got this kind of, you know, barely trained soldier force, you know, that aren't the stormtrooper space. So it was world building a little
I suppose,
bit.
yeah.
But yeah, look, I think the thing about the Solo film that's so dire was that the initial production of it that I was keeping an eye on had a tone and temperament that was much more comedy based.
Yeah.
And then they fired that team, the
That's
director,
right, yeah.
and they
it
brought
went through
Ron Howard on
development. Yeah.
to take over. And yeah, I think that you can see that there was a lot of tampering, that the tone changes, that So I think it was a victim of its circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, Rogue One was, which is linked to Andor. I mean,
Well,
look,
I liked Rogue One.
yeah. I mean, I think Star Wars very much has been saved. I mean, you've got the Baby Yoda, Mandalorians. I mean, I've forgotten it now, but it was a great series that really rejuvenated Star Wars. So you know, I think it's a fascinating franchise. Really, you know, interesting world building. I think the Andor series has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I think the politics of it have really held up. The first season's really strong. The second season, I think, equally strong. They've avoided, I think, a lot of the pitfalls. You know, if you think about, there's a female love interest character that Andor has, and the way they use that character, I think, is really clever in terms of they don't just they were talking about, some people were really worried that this love interest that Andor has will be fridged. Do you know this reference, the trope of when the hero's love interest gets fridged?
Fridged?
It's based on comic books. This Green Lantern comic book had his girlfriend is killed by the villain and then cut up and put into a fridge.
Brilliant.
And of course, you know, the trope here is that, you know, the point at which the villain's the hero's taken to the edge, right? Something disastrous happens to our hero, and, you know, all the chips are down, and he has to draw upon his inner strength. And also they wanted to get rid of his girlfriend to give him,
And gets fridged.
Gets fridged. Yep. So that's Andor. That is Andor.
There's another one now.
Oh, okay. Wow, we're in conversation.
It's to you first, actually.
All right.
Hello, Dr. Craig Norris.
Hey. I can't really. Can you read it? I can't really.
Yeah, it says,
frame my head around.
Hello, Dr. Craig Norris and Tay-Tay. This is right at this time.
Why are you Tay-Tay? Isn't that Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
People call me that all the time. Please don't start.
Do they know that you're an ordained minister?
Yeah, no, they don't know I'm an ordained minister.
Good.
And then they say, I was wondering if there's a chance you could maybe have a discussion on, like, ongoing conflict and, like, how you feel about them. That doesn't make any English sense. So I can't respond to that.
Well, you know, the Andor discussion of rebellion and resistance speaks into that. I mean, look,
have a discussion on, like, ongoing conflict.
Well, I mean, what I find really interesting is obviously the Andor series went into production a long time before the moment in history we're in at the moment.
Yeah.
But you think about how well it's lined up with some of the conflicts that are today facing the world, particularly the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I feel that you can't not watch Andor and think of the news you're seeing on the Israel-Palestine conflict and the tensions around how to resist that space, how to protest in that environment. It's quite powerful. Also, the fact that Trump got into power, this would have been in production before that election occurred, but now Trump's in power. Again, this idea of how do you resist and protest in an environment like this? Look, and I think that's where Andor is so successful as a series, that it seems to be in conversation with today's moment of history around this issue of conflict and providing storytelling to cope in that environment, right? It's
funny story, actually. I found out that my girlfriend's cousin is called Trump.
Wow, awkward.
And his brother is called Putin.
What? Wow, did they cosplay? That would be wonderful. Wow, Trump, Putin, because those are not
but
usual
Putin's
names.
now called Ben.
Oh, Putin changed his name.
Like Ben Kenobi.
Wow. Because Putin came to power, like 20 years ago? So how old is Putin, do you think? I
have no idea.
Was he born pre or after Putin's rise to power? Right? If he was named after raises...
I think.
Really? Because that's more troubling. Right? If you name your child after a established problematic figure, like Putin, after you know they're problematic, then that's a problem. Right? If you name them before that they're problematic, it's just bad luck.
And Trump. Come on. Trump.
Yeah, Trump's been going for a long time, but you wouldn't really... Trump is an unusual name. Yeah. Trump and Putin are both unusual names. Yeah. Maybe it was just... Yeah.
Anyway, back onto manga anime, please.
So I want to play this first clip. Remember these nostalgic anime from the 90s and early 2000s? So you would have been, what,
okay, so
5?
Boring ones. Okay, yeah.
At that age, and you weren't even born. So let's see if this clip speaks to your experience. Where did you get into anime? What was your big anime that you kind of got, that you liked?
What gave you the bug?
Oh, what game? I watched Dragon Ball Z, but I think what really got me into anime series is probably JoJo.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an enormously popular series. It's a really aesthetically distinctive style. It's not your kind of manga style that many people would associate with Astro Boy, big eyes,
I've never
cute
actually
face.
seen it.
But JoJo's style is very artistic.
Yeah, and it has. You were saying it has a huge fan base in design and kind of high fashion.
Yeah, very big fandom in high fashion.
What's one of the attacks that are based on songs?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I don't remember.
So many. There's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Yeah,
the great thing about it is, so the original Japanese version of the manga and anime got to use and reference all these as their attack names.
Yeah.
Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, which of course is a song title by AC/DC, but when it got localized into the West, they didn't have the copyright ownership of those titles.
Yeah, in the anime.
So they had to change them to adjacent terms. So Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap is something like...
Yeah, but that's
filthy inconveniences. Yeah, they call it filthy inconveniences that are very affordable.
Oh, right.
Right.
I think, Sex Pistols?
Yes, Anarchy in the UK.
It got renamed to Six
Pistols. That's kind of clever. All right, so and your series, what was your series that you enjoyed? What's a series you loved?
When I was younger, I didn't particularly love it, but I watched Astro Boy.
All right, you did watch Astro Boy.
And I watched the classic one, the proper one. And Pokemon. And then my actual one, which is okay, I know this is Japanese animation, and I like Japanese animation now, Spirited Away.
Oh, right. Okay, Miyazaki. Well, I'm glad that got a Guernsey. Certainly Miyazaki was considered this moment where what anime meant changed dramatically. Up until Miyazaki's popularity, from Meneba Totoro, Spirited Away, Nausicaa, Ponyo, all those movies started to come out. Before then, up until that point, anime manga was really seen as adult violence, highly sexualized, right? So full of Akira and cyborgs, and it was very much tailored towards a very niche demographic. But then it became much more family viewing. Astro Boy is a really interesting reference because I know when I was doing my reference in the mid-90s, it was this emblematic moment of no one knew this was Japanese, right? When you watched Astro Boy dubbed, and there was no context around it being from Japan, there'd be no tells in it. The faces were not stereotypically Asian. The setting was the future, so it didn't have like shrines and a ramen shop and everything. Probably was ramen in there.
Yeah.
Pokemon as well, right? I mean, for a while you didn't need to get into Japan to understand that. But when in the mid-90s when this came out, there was this idea of that you needed to tap into Japan, that you needed to watch it subbed, that it was all about this different non-Western, non-Disney animation style.
But now, of course, Studio Ghibli has just gone really terrible now, and they can't make anything good, can they?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the
Have you seen Earwig and the Witch?
No, I haven't.
It is some of the worst writing, voice acting, visuals I've ever seen. It is worse than 30 years ago.
Whoa,
Well,
that's 4.7 out of 10 IMDb.
Really? That bombed. Well, okay, message in now for what your favorite anime was. What got you into anime?
At the moment, I think the new company that's sort of like overtaking them now, I can't remember who it is or what the company's name is. It's something Comic Studios, but it's the one that did Your Name and Weathering with You and...
Okay, yeah, and they've got a lot of success. There's
Suzume.
Which
is really good too.
Yep. Miyazaki, so of course Miyazaki retired, right? So Studio Ghibli went through a moment of its main artistic center left with Miyazaki Hayao. I think he's been brought back, or there's little projects he's working on. But the thing I love about Miyazaki these days is that how the meme of him saying, anime's ruined.
Yeah.
What did he say? Like he hates AI. There was a documentary that was done with him on AI and how he just is the most depressing person to speak to about how he sees the current and future of anime. He just says it's all pretty horrible.
Bro.
Okay, we're going to reply. That's great.
Someone's texted in and said, my fave is Avatar.
Avatar, The Last Airbender. Yeah. And
That's a big controversy with
what's the controversy around Avatar? And because we're not talking about the James Cameron Avatar. We're talking about the classic anime animation. I mean, it's Western produced.
Yeah, it's not. Like people, if you call some people get really offended if you call it anime.
That's right. Yeah. Because you've got this purist vibe, and then you've got this globalized vibe, right? You got these at moments there are these very different two communities. But Avatar, hugely popular series, modeled on, styled after the Japanese manga anime style, but with, I guess it wasn't produced in Japan. It didn't have animation. I mean, a lot of Japanese animation is produced in Korea, but the main storytelling, and I mean, there's still anime, of course,
and all US animation is based in Korea as well. SpongeBob.
Oh, right.
It's Korean. So is The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, all Korean.
King of the Hill?
Sort of. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, look. Setting us up for next week's show, then. I'll play this clip, and this will set up our discussion for next week's show, potentially on
Sub vs Dub.
Sub vs Dub, and maybe some VHS anime era.
My favorite is Avatar.
A complementary vision of the future was unfolding. Anime was no stranger to weaving tales that combine technology, identity, and society in intricate ways. These works weren't just visually stunning. They introduced to the West a multifaceted approach to futurism. From the philosophical quandaries of AI in Serial Experiments Lane, to the dark gritty themes of Technolize, Japan's pop culture was bursting with fresh takes on the digital age.
Right, that's the clip.
Great.
There we go. That's exciting. So we'll look into some anime. I might pull out my old VHS copy of Urotsuki Doji Legend of the Overfiend, which was banned in many countries. Yeah. I mean, it's this absolutely filthy anime.
Wow.
And It's one of those.
These are illegal goods that you have imported into Australia.
Legal. I mean, it was released by Kaseki Entertainment at that time, or Manga Entertainment actually released it as well. It was on the film festival circuit. Right. The only way you'd watch a lot of anime in '95, between '90 and '95, was either what was on TV, so Astro Boy, Battle for the Planet, Star Blazers, or it would be in a film festival, like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Urotsuki Doji, or Fist of the North Star.
Wow.
So, yeah. I'll have to do a ChatGPT search to see if it's okay to show my 15-year-old.
Oh my god.
Well, the thing to do with what's his name as well, to do with anime and manga sort of thing, is to look at how that has shaped gaming as well. Because if you think about it, visual novels are very popular as well.
Yes.
So things like Doki Doki Literature Club. Have you played that ever?
No.
Wow.
Doki Doki
Literature Club.
Oh, Doki Doki. That's the onomatopoeia for heartbeats.
Yeah.
Doki Doki.
Literature Club. And it starts off as this sort of like dating sim, which soon turns into a horror game. Yeah.
Well, we'll get a reading list together for the next show. Of course, what's interesting to me about exploring this is how completely misrepresentative of this is for the lived reality in Japan. That most of the titles, certainly Akira, Urotsuki Doji, Legend of the Overfiend, are like niche titles in Japan, right? They're not at all part of the mainstream anime consumption experience. I mean, Akira less so because it got so big in the West in the early to mid 90s that it became popular. In fact, when I was in Japan leading up to the Olympics, before COVID, a lot of the building sites in Tokyo had erected the scaffolds, and printed on all the scaffolds were frames from the Akira manga.
Wow. And
because in Akira, they reference the Olympics that's running in that fictional future Japan. So anyway, so reading list.
Another thing for the reading list as well.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of ghost stories?
No.
So this will be great for the sub versus dub that we'll have next week. It's a dubbed version of an anime, but it is done as a joke by the people who were dubbing it.
Ghost stories.
Okay. So it was an anime that came out that was so boring that they just said, we're not going to like translate this. It goes through all of the different sort of cliches that go with any sort of ghost story. So we're just going to have some fun with it. And
Is there any reference to the 1980s West Hobart Datura Plant story?
No.
Okay, well, we're going to watch it, and I'm going to try and do my own fan fiction in the style of that. All right, well, that's been Media Mothership for another week. Thank you very much for our commenters throughout this show.
Yes, thanks, commenters, who would be Nathan and Ryder.
I think the main points and takeaways from today's show, include, you're doing some good teaching.
Yeah.
Show notes will be available on the episode description via YouTube or your podcast supplier of choice. Next week, we'll see if we can get some time to do some sub-verse dub debate and watch some anime. You can listen to previous episodes on YouTube, Twitch, or at edgeradio.org.au or your podcast provider of choice. You can find Taylor on something. Are you going to do a show at some point?
I will at some point, but it will be when I'm back.
All right.
Yeah.
In the future. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review if you're listening via
leave
podcast.
A review?
Can you do that? Thumbs up. Heart me. If you have questions or topic suggestions, write in and contact us on Facebook. And I'm going to try and get the Discord working again.
The Discord's already working.
Yeah,
and I saw that you posted
it's
it.
unmoderated.
Okay, that's true.
I'm the only one posting my show things up in there. But yeah, we have a Discord, or we have an Instagram as well. A TikTok, maybe I'll dust that off.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, coming up now, we've got some really cool music on Edge Radio to chill to.
Chill to it.